So you want to name the organ you see and then break it down. So someone tell me this organ.
Is it spleen?
A spleen.
A thymus?
Say lymph node.
Lymph node.
How would I know that's a lymph node, you ask? Okay. There's several clues. They're not always the best clues. Okay. So what you want to do is look for the layering of the organ. You notice that there's a clear little layer here. Then there's like a dark ring like here. And there's kind of an open center, right? Lymph nodes tend to be like that, where there's a ring of dark around a center like that. So they're basically one layer organ. That would be your lymph node. Let me show you a different picture. This is a close-up of a lymph node. Notice the layering. We have a clear outside. We have a dark here and a less dark there. Make sense? Okay, so let's start naming these parts. What do you call the outside part that's clear? That's the capsule, right? Where else did you have a capsule? Adrenal gland, does that ring a bell? This looks just like an adrenal gland. It's the same logic. So what would you call the outer layer of an adrenal gland?
Cortex.
So what do you call the outer layer of a lymph node?
Cortex.
How about that? What do you call the inner layer of an adrenal gland? What do you call it here? That's the same logic. So it looks like an adrenal gland. Same three layers. The trick is, these dark layers now have things in them. So let me show you so you have to look carefully right here. On my little screen you can see it better, honestly. But what do you see there?
Germinal center.
You see circles, right? Little rings. What did you call rings in the thyroid gland?
Follicles.
What do you call them here? Follicles. So the follicles are in sort of the cortex, or along the outside ring of this organ. So those would be the follicles of the dark, ringy looking things, right? What do you call the center of the rings?
Germinal center.
Germinal center. Those are lighter in color normally. So here I have a ring follicle with a germinal center in its center, in the cortex. Make big sense? I'll take a look here. But look right here and here. What do you see there and there?
Follicle.
Follicle. What do you see there?
Terminal center.
Very good. So that tells you it's a lymph node because the follicles are in the ring on the outside. Make sense? Okay, some other words. There's a gap between the capsule and the cortex right here. Subscapular sinus. We put sup. It should be sub. Subscapular sinus.
Isn't it subcapsular?
Subcapsular, yes. Did I say subscapular?
Yeah.
That's somewhere else. Capsular sinus. I can't say it. All right, below your capsule space. Who lives there, according to this? The T cells live there. So now what you're going to do is, from the subcapsular sinus, take your finger and go down these white things like here, 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 like spokes. Trabeculae. Trabeculae are the spokes, quote, that come down from the subcapsular sinus. Those are trabeculae. So the trabeculae penetrate into the cortex to the medulla. Make sense? That's everything on a lymph node. So you're looking for a ring of those dark circles, and that's basically your node. Every other lymphoid organ we do will have the same general parts. What differs is where they're located in the organ. So you want to get that follicle germinal center thing in your head because every other one has it. Okay? What do you call this big lump right there?
Medullary.
Medullary what?
Cord.
Isn't it a sinus?
Sinus.
Sinus. Medullary sinus. That's the big... On a lot of your slides you won't see that because they won't have this depression. But you're going to have a hole in this medulla, medullary sinus. Now, we have, on this slide, you have this little kind of kidney bean looking thing, which you're actually going to hear a lot next term all the time. Anyone know what you call a kidney bean looking thing officially? Hilum or hilus. So this is the hilum or hilus where the plumbing enters. Medullary sinus, medulla, trabeculae,
Wait,
and all that.
can you point out the hilum again?
It's just the notch right here.
Oh.
The kidney bean shape of a kidney.
Isn't that the same as the kidneys?
Yes. Everything, hilum just means to notch in. So
Oh,
everything
okay.
has a hilum. Your lungs have a hilum, your kidney has, it's just one more word. Right? So the only thing on here that you cannot see on a slide is afferent versus efferent. But you should know what they mean. What does afferent mean?
Going in.
Going into what in this case? Into the lymph system, and then efferent would be coming out. So your lab manual has a diagram that shows it, but I don't tend to ask that on a slide because it's almost impossible to find it. Plus, I think it's unfair, but that's me. This one's an artery. That's probably maybe a big vein. Maybe, yeah.
So how does it travel? Like going in, does it go like into the?
Yeah. So it should then basically come through like this. It goes around the outside, drains in, and then drains back out, just like an oil filter would. So you pass through all the sinuses and all that. Yes.
That kind of brought up a question for me: is how does the lymphatic system, like, there's nothing that pumps?
Right.
Anything, right? Is it all just
The
gravity?
muscles
or?
milk it.
Gravity, and also because there's valves. Every time you move, you squeeze lymph as well.
Okay.
That's why massage is really good.
Right. Massage, socks, gravity, walking. It's exactly the same as the vein system.
Because the muscles push it through.
Yep, muscles, all that.
Massage and sound.
What were the medulla? What were the cords?
Cords. Okay, cords are this odd construction. Now, depending on who you talk to, you'll get a different definition. I learned that this whole section between the trabeculae was a cord,
Oh.
like a room. Now, if you talk to other people, they'll argue, no, it's the vessels within the area. Okay.
I can see that.
So I would say that that's a cord, this is a cord, here's a cord. And by the way, I never ask cords on any exam.
So it's
Okay, a lymph node. So look for rings of follicles because the next one I show you will be different. Okay, is this a lymph node? Say no.
No.
How do I know it's not a lymph node? It's not in a layer, right? Notice the circles are all over the map. They're mix and match. They're not in a ring. So this is our next organ down, Mr. Spleen. So you're looking at a close-up of a spleen. But do you see follicles? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. But in a spleen, they name them differently. The dark things are called white pulp. I didn't come up with this. Okay? White blood cells are purple. White pulp is black. So what do you call the stuff that's not dark? Like the red stuff? Red pulp. So, but you still see that germinal center concept. It's just they're spread out and mixed around.
Yeah, can we go back?
The
Because
purple's the white?
Purple's the white.
Oh, okay. The red's the red.
The red's the red, the purple's the white.
wow.
This makes sense in biology land.
Okay, so the red is everything else?
The red is non-circle, yes,
Non-circle.
basically.
And the dark spots are white pulp?
White pulp, yep. So if that were a node, you say follicle, but in a spleen, you say white
So
pulp.
which one are the dark spots?
The dark spots are white.
Just think the opposite, then you have biology.
Think of a white blood cell, right? They're purple. You see that? That's the same logic here. Right? But, you know, I'm just...
But they're both follicles.
So if you look at how they... White pulp is WP, the dark things are white, the non-white pulp... No, you're not colorblind. That's what it says. It's all just called the blue tissue white.
But that's all how it gets stained.
That's how it gets stained. But, you know, we name things by how it looks, not what it is. So it gets stained dark, you know, whatever. That's how it is.
So those are all follicles.
Yes, but you don't call them balls in this way.
We're calling them
white and red
White
pulp.
pulp, red pulp. Another view.
Oh my God.
You can still make out that there's dark circles and non-dark circles, but because they're scattered, I know that's a spleen, and that therefore is white, and this is red, because it's a spleen. Yeah, I can hear the glove here. Okay. Now, JDoc unfortunately doesn't show a bigger picture of a spleen, so I'm actually going to shift gears for a second here. Here is a spleen. And the reason I know it's a spleen on a lymph node is look at the circle, the dark areas. Notice that they're everywhere and not in just the outside. So you got to be careful where the circles are. Right? That is a spleen versus a node. Should I even have a node? Here's the node. Notice on the node the dark is only in the outside. So you're going to catch on that layering thing. Same part, same colors, just different spot in the slide. So you have to get really good on your slides. Make sure you look at the whole picture first before you zoom in. Otherwise it'll just look like red and dark. Right? That's node. Let's go back to spleen land. Right? Or spleen. Here's a very beautiful spleen.
Mm-hmm.
Notice the red and the white. All right? But notice also that the circles are interspaced everywhere. There's no inside-outside medulla. So, beautiful, beautiful spleen. Beautiful spleen. Right? But let's go back to the other Boston picture for a second. If I saw this view, you would notice that there is a little thing right out here that surrounds the whole spleen. What would you call that if that were a lymph node? A capsule. What do you call it here? Say capsule. Capsule. And then you can vaguely see that there are some little white lines that come from the outside toward the middle. What would you call those? Trabeculae. So you're going to use the same language, just remembering white versus red versus, right? So it's the same answers over and over and over. Right? So let's keep going. So that's a spleen, interspersed circles. No. What's different about this? Those big old white things. Good answer. So this looks like everything else, but I don't remember these big lines or septa, meaning wall. Therefore, this is a thymus. You take a lymph node and put walls in it, and now you are a thymus. Right? So septum makes walls. So this is a thymus. What do you call the room there between the white lines? That's a lobule. So this is a lobule, aka room. These are the walls, aka septa. And if you look carefully, you'll notice that there's a dark outside and a lighter inside. What would you call the outside of the room? Cortex. Cortex. What would you call the inside of the room? How about that? It's a lymph node with walls. It's the same language. But you notice that the walls make it distinctly a thymus. Is this the thymus? Yes, it is. That's the septa. The white lines you see would break into rooms, lobules, give an outside-inside cortex medulla. So it looks like a lymph node and spleen, but it has lines which make it very different. Let me show you. Is that a thymus? Say yes. How do I know it's a thymus? White lines here, some big white, and you can see that there's like rooms, lobule, 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 lobule. You can see that it's like lymph node with multiple parts attached.
Would you put two lobules like a certain cortex in this picture?
So just from the coloration here, cortex would be this dark here, medulla would be this here. Cortex, medulla. Cortex, medulla, lobule 1, cortex, medulla, lobule 2. So you have multiple cortex medullae.
So every time there's a medulla, then in the cortex around, that's one lob per se. Does that one that's in the middle kind of towards the one right in the middle, it's not actually separated? That one, yeah.
Yeah,
so is that considered two lobules?
I would consider it two. I bet you that it does separate, but just not in the right here. But if it did separate, then it'd be two lobules. I think it actually would be separated from the view. What is that, say ye? That's a tonsil. Okay, let's look at how it looks. It looks exactly the same as everything else, right? Big circles. But you notice what's different is you have this big notch or lip into it. It looks like Pacman. Right? That's your clue that this is not a spleen or a lymph node or a thymus. That's a tonsil. Tonsils have a crypt, which is this empty space that goes kind of down the middle. So it looks like a folded taco Pac-Man-y thing. Okay, so that's the crypt, is the white space. What do you call, though, the circles of dark? Follicles. What do you call the center of the circles? Germinal center. So use a lymph node, but call it a tonsil. They're the same.
Is the crypt a like a reservoir? Or
yeah, it's just basically a space. Yeah. Hey. Name the organ.
No.
I have votes for nodes.
Yes. No.
You sure?
Yeah.
Bet you 75 points on it? You bet you will. Very good. How'd you know it's a lymph node?
Circles on the edge.
Circles on the edge. You know, yeah, well, there's one that isn't. Well, okay, grow up. That's fine. All right. They're mostly in the cortex. You see a capsule. You see a medulla. It's kind of a ring. You see a hilum. That's a very classic lymph node. But again, ring of dark. You can especially see it on my little screen. The color is better. All right. This one.
Lymph node. It's a lymph node.
It is. Same thing. I'm trying to scare you, right? That's even better than the other. All right, let's try
It's a it's a tonsil.
I mean, we're cheaters. How would you know? Here's our crypt.
It's Pacman.
So Pacman, taco thing, a little lip usually on them. Crypt, but again, I have a ring of a lymph node with a hole in the middle. All right? You gotta learn how to turn it off better. So, yeah, be sure for Thymus. How did you know? They're the rooms. So we have a cortex medulla in each, quote, room or lobule. All right? It looks kind of like a spleen, but a spleen doesn't have those. That's not the best picture in town. It's the one they give me.
Is it a spleen?
Is it? I don't know. You tell me.
Spleen.
Yeah,
I'm going to go with spleen.
I agree.
Yeah.
The problem is the coloration's wrong, right? I mean, but here are what's left of your germinal centers. But notice how I have circles everywhere. Not in a ring, not on the outside. There's no lip. This is a weird-looking spleen with a lousy coloration. This would be a close-up of that if they stained it differently. That's spleen. So what kind of pulp is this? White. What kind of pulp is? Too close. I can't even see. Like right here. Yes. Right. Very good. But they're scattered, right? Here.
That's a spleen.
Same thing. Spleen, different angle. So if you can look for the circles and how they're arranged, you can get to the histology of the lymphatic system. Make sense?
That's hard.
Well, you can see the
Yeah, like the
right here because that's the same as that.
Oh.
Okay.
Jonathan.